Hello! In this video, we're going to be talking about the very basics of working in Tableau. So now Tableau is the third piece of data visualization software that we're going to be covering in this class. Excel is great if the data that you have is already in the format that you need it, and you are going to use a pretty standard type of graph. ggplot in R is great if you need to clean your data or prepare it in some way. It's also great if you need a whole lot of customization in your process. If you need to be able to control every little thing, then ggplot is probably what you want to do, and it can also extend into all sorts of different kinds of graphs, animation, and all sorts of stuff. Tableau is great for a couple of reasons. So for one thing, it is very good at guessing what you want. So it doesn't do a whole lot of data cleaning, sort of in the vein of Excel, but it has a pretty good sense of guessing what kind of data you're working with, and also guessing the kinds of graphs that you are trying to make. It's pretty good at it. It's also very good at working with databases. So Excel and R both are based on the idea that you are going to load the data into your software, and then you're going to work with it. And now this can be a problem if you are working with a giant database. Now there are ways of working with databases in R and maybe Excel, I don't know. But Tableau is really made for it. Tableau, instead of bringing the data into your software and doing whatever sorts of stuff it needs to do on it there, instead it will send its request out to the software, have it do all the working out there at the data, and then bring back the result. This can be really handy if you're working, again, with a giant data set that maybe couldn't possibly even open on your computer. So it can really reduce the amount of work that your computer needs to do. It can also be very easy to make a type of visualization that can automatically update as the data that is underlying it updates. Because again, it does not bring the data in and work on it. It sends the process out and works on it there, which means that if something changes out there, something has already changed in here. So let's talk about some of the basics of Tableau. We're going to start in this video by really just talking about bringing in data, and then some basics on working on the screen and what the different kinds of variables mean. So as I mentioned, unlike in those other pieces of software, we are going to be reaching out to the data rather than bringing the data into us. For the most part, there are two ways to bring data into Tableau. One is to bring it in as an extract, where it actually does bring the data in. Another is to treat it as effectively a database and send our calculations out. But all I've done here is that I've looked over here on connect. It's called connect instead of load, because we are connecting to a data source as opposed to necessarily loading it into the thing. I clicked on text file because I want to load in a CSV file here, scorecard for Tableau. And I'm going to click on that. It's going to set up a connection with that data set. So it's going to figure out what's in there. It's going to process that for me. It's going to tell me information about it. And it's going to bring me to this screen right here. Now, my options are live, which keeps the data where it is. And if I want to make any changes, it will sort of say, hey, here's the calculation I want. Here's out the data, bring it back to me. Or I can do an extract, which is going to bring it in to me. I have down here what the data looks like, and so I can see what kinds of variables that I have. This is showing me the contents of the CSV file. I can use automatic cleaning, which I'm not sure how well that works. I haven't really used it a whole lot myself, but it's something you might want to try. I tend to want to do things by hand anyway. But we have all our variables here. So what can we do with this? So one thing we can do is we can, unlike in R, we would bring data in and we would do things like recoding the variables, labeling things, filtering the data, selecting variables. Here we're going to do it here as we are bringing the data in. And so if you look at the different variables that we have, first of all, you can see that it's guessing what kind of variable we have here. So here's a unit ID, it's a number, it's telling me, hey, this is a number. Here's the title of the school that we're looking at, it's going to say, hey, this is a string variable. This is a state abbreviation, it has guessed that is a map variable, which is really handy, right? Like I said, it's very good at guessing what it is that you want. In R, I would need to tell it, yeah, hey, this is a state. I might need to connect it to some other way of labeling it as a state in the way that it wants, but Tableau just says, hey, this looks like a state variable. If I want to put it on a map, it can just go. Okay. So let's say that I want to do some recoding or selecting of variables here. Maybe I don't want this count not working variable here. So I can go here and I can say, hi, I don't need to see that variable. You can take it away from me, and the hide will take it away. I can also do some labeling or recoding. So for example, if I can go into this variable, notice that it seems to think this is a string variable. It says ABC, but this is a numeric variable. Right? What's the median earnings? 36,600 for that school. So why does it think it's a string variable? Oh, because it's these NA options right here, which in the exported data means missing, but Tableau is thinking that it's a name or something like that. So I'm going to say, hey, this is actually a number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the ABC. I'm going to say, hey, no, this is actually a whole number here, and it will take those NA values and turn them into actual missing values. I can do that the same thing for this other variable, which has happened in the same way. Okay, so I've recoded some of my variables as different variable types. I can also do some coding. So for example, notice here, pred degree awarded iPad. So this happens to correspond to the type of degrees being awarded at this institution. But it's just numeric here, right? It's 1, 2, 3 as opposed to the actual labels here. So I can go to this down arrow. I can do create group. And what I can do is I can add labels to these numbers here. Where I can say group, okay, what's this group here? Maybe this is 2-year degrees. I forget if that's actually correct, but I can say that 2-year degrees, 4-year degrees, and master's degrees. Again, I forget if those are the actual right coding, but this is how you would do the coding. I hit apply. And suddenly, now the actual variable itself is still here, but if I go over here to the right, I can see that it's labeled in here. So the 3 corresponds to master's degrees, the 2 corresponds to 4-year degrees. So I've created a new variable that has the encoding that I need. Another thing I can do, I can just go here and create a calculated field. And so this maybe, I want to maybe center the earnings around 40K to see, you know, are you above 40K, are you below 40K? So I'm going to say earnings minus 40K. I don't know why I might want to do this, but I'll just take earnings med and I'll subtract out $40,000. And there we go, right? So I can do calculations like that at this stage, which I can then later use in my graph if I so to desire. I can also create bins for the variable. So if instead of earnings, the median earnings of a college student at that institution, I might want to bin it. Are you in the top group? Are you in the middle group? Are you in the bottom group? And so this is saying how wide the bins are going to be. I can suggest the bin size. I can go from the min to the max, whatever I want to do. And so if I do this, you can see bins, and this is just giving the different bin values that we have here. So this 45,752, that's not an actual value. 45,752, that's saying it's in that bin. So once we've done all these things here, we've selected which variables we want to hide and so not really pay attention to. We've created groups that encode the different values and what we need them to be. We've done calculations and we've done all that sort of thing. We've changed the style of the variable. We can go into Tableau itself. To do that, I can just click on Go to Worksheet, which is now working with this data. And you can see that all my variables show up in that left-hand column. So now there are different kinds of variables in Tableau. We're really concerned about whether the variables are discrete or continuous, because again, it wants to guess what kind of demonstration or visualization that you want, and it needs to know whether you're working with continuous or discrete data. So it really cares about whether we're continuous or discrete here. So we can look at a number. So this number right here is number whole, whereas the bins, you can see this little histogram there. It's knowing that that's bins. It's going to be discrete values. So it really matters about that. It also cares about whether it's characters or strings, or categories, whatever kind of variable it is. That's going to be over here on the right. We can create new calculations, by the way, over here. If we feel like, we can go back to that data selection screen and keep working on it. It also cares whether it is a measure or a dimension. And so that really matters because a measure is something that's going to get aggregated or calculated upon before it actually gets graphed. So a dimension, you would want to say, hey, this number is 45,233. I want to see 45,233 on that graph. A measure might be, hey, I want to average out this value, and then I want to see that average value. I want to do some sort of calculation on it in the graph. Whatever kinds of variables that we have, we can pull them into the columns or rows shelves up here. And that's going to tell us where it's going to be on our particular visualization. And it can do some guesses as to what kind of visualization we want. There can be additional shelves as well that might correspond to different kinds of axes on our data. For example, we might get certain labels on different things or different colors. So let's put in columns here. Let's put earnings median there. And then on the rows, let's put the state. Now you'll notice what's happened here is that I've gotten earnings median as columns, right? The different values that are available to me are columns. But that's not what I want, right? So what I'm going to have is I'm basically using this as the wrong thing. I want to turn this into a measure, and that is what I want to use in the columns there. And when I do that, now I'm getting numbers, right? So before it was a dimension, it was showing me each individual data point. I didn't want that. I wanted to just get the average by state. So by turning it into a measure, it is now doing a calculation on it. And particularly, it's chosen the sum. It's chosen to sum up the earnings across the state. I maybe don't want that. Maybe I want an average instead. So I go down to measure. I want an average instead. And now it's giving me the average median earnings of each college by state. I put the state in rows, so now that's on the rows is where the state goes. I've put the columns variable as being the earnings, so that's going on the columns on the x-axis there. And that's the basic idea of how you can construct, how you can import data in Tableau, how you can do some data manipulation on the importing stage that we talked about there. You can't do a whole lot of data manipulation there, but you can do some. If your data is almost where you need it to be, you can get it all the way. Once you have it in, you need to think about the kinds of variables that you have. Are they discrete? Are they continuous? Are they categorical? What kinds of data are they exactly? Are they dimensions, in which case I want to plot every single point? Or are they measures, in which case I want to aggregate and calculate them before I plot them? And that's going to have a really big impact on what kind of thing I see, the kind of graph it thinks that I want. So hey, if I want average earnings by state, then yeah, show me all the states and then show me a bar that gives me the average earnings. That's a pretty obvious thing. We can also put in, for example, to color. I can put that on a shelf there, and now I've got different colors by state, or by year, right? So because I've dragged that to the color shelf. So I can put things in shelves to show how they differ on attributes. In ggplot, this would have been the aesthetics, or in a very similar idea there. And it will guess what kinds of things we want. All right, that's the basics of importing and working with variables in Tableau. Thank you.